Chai. Understanding project architecture with Project Cortex projects are more complex than most people realize, and that's exactly the problem. Walk into any organization and you'll find smart people working hard on important projects, but ask them to explain how all the pieces fit together, and you'll get blank stares or conflicting answers. Traditional project management focuses on tasks and timelines, which is like trying to understand a building by staring at the individual bricks. You miss the architecture that makes everything work. Project Cortex gives you Project X-ray vision, a systematic way to see the 3 levels and 3 dimensions that shape every project's success or failure. Instead of drowning in Gantt charts and status reports, you can finally understand why some projects flow smoothly, while others constantly struggle. This isn't just another framework for project managers. It's a common language that helps everyone from executives to individual contributors see the same project structure clearly. When everyone can see the architecture, better decisions become inevitable. Expert project and program managers learn these connections over multiple projects, often painfully. Making these connections for yourself builds competence. Making them visible for your entire project team creates leadership. Let's start at the top with the strategic foundation that determines whether your project will succeed or struggle from day one. Portfolio level, the strategic foundation. The portfolio level is where strategy meets reality, and good intentions either become solid foundations or expensive mistakes. This is about understanding why your project exists, what it's really trying to accomplish, and whether it makes sense in the bigger picture. Most project failures start here, not because people can't execute, but because nobody took the time to think clearly about scope, life cycle, and budget at the strategic level. When portfolio thinking is clear, everything downstream flows naturally. When it's muddled, even the best execution can't save you. Scope, what's really in and what's really out. Here's where most projects start falling apart before they even begin. Scope isn't just a list of features or deliverables. It's the fundamental boundary that separates your project from everything else in the universe. Traditional project managers treat scope like a shopping list, but Project Cortex reveals it as the architectural foundation that determines whether your project will succeed or collapse under its own confusion. When you get scope right, you feel that satisfying click of clarity. Everyone knows exactly what they're building and why. When you get it wrong, you're stuck in that sinking feeling of endless scope creep and confused stakeholders asking, "Wait, I thought we were also doing X." The connection between scope and the rest of your project is absolute. When your project team understands scope clearly, they can make daily decisions that stay aligned. When scope is fuzzy, even experienced team members start working at cross purposes. Bad scope creates bad timelines, bad budgets, and bad everything else downstream. With scope clearly defined, the next question becomes, how does this project fit into the larger organizational timeline and strategy? Life cycle, your project's place in the bigger story. Most people think life cycle means start date to end date, but that's just task-level thinking dressed up infancy clothes. Real life cycle thinking connects your project to the organizational strategy that came before it, and the operational reality that will come after it. Life cycle depends completely on having clear scope. If you don't know what you're building, you can't understand how it fits into the bigger timeline. Seasoned program managers know this connection instinctively. You're not just building something, you're creating a bridge between where the organization is now and where it wants to be. When lifecycle alignment works, you get that powerful feeling of momentum, like you're riding a wave instead of fighting the current. When it's broken, every day feels like you're pushing a boulder uphill, while people question why this project exists at all. The life cycle connects directly to your function and tasks below. If you don't understand the strategic life cycle, your coordination efforts and daily execution become random activities instead of purposeful progress. Budget, the financial reality check. Budget at the portfolio level isn't about counting pennies. It's about understanding the value proposition that justifies this project's existence in the first place. Traditional project management treats budget like a constraint, but Project Cortex shows you it's actually a strategic communication tool. When you understand the real financial envelope and value proposition, budgeting becomes a conversation about priority and impact, instead of a fight over resources. Get this right and you feel the confidence of knowing your project makes financial sense. get it wrong, and you're constantly defending why you deserve to exist. Budget connects upward to organizational strategy and downward to resource allocation. If the portfolio budget doesn't make sense, no amount of clever resource management will save you. At the program level, the coordination layer. Function, how the pieces actually fit together. Function is where Project Cortex really shines compared to traditional project management approaches. While most PM frameworks focus on tasks and timelines, Function reveals how all your project components actually work together to create value. It's the difference between having a pile of car parts and having a car that runs. When you understand Function clearly, you can see why each piece matters and how changes in one area will ripple through everything else. That's the satisfaction of systematic thinking. You're not just managing activities, you're orchestrating a system. When Function is unclear, you get that frustrated feeling of working hard but not making real progress, because the pieces don't add up to anything coherent. Function connects your strategic scope above with your operational tasks below. It's the crucial translation layer that turns high-level vision into coordinated action. Function only works when your team understands both the strategic life cycle above and the operational tasks below. This three-way connection is what separates competent coordinators from people just shuffling activities around. Timeline, the master schedule that actually makes sense. Timeline at the program level is completely different from the Gantt chart nightmares that most project managers create. This is about understanding the natural sequence and rhythm of how work actually flows through your system. Traditional scheduling often ignores the real dependencies and coordination needs, creating beautiful charts that fall apart the moment reality hits. When you get timeline right using Project Cortex, you feel that sense of flow where work moves smoothly from one phase to the next. When it's wrong, you get the constant stress of artificial deadlines and impossible coordination requirements. Timeline connects your lifecycle strategy above with your daily duration realities below. Expert project managers learn that timeline planning is impossible without solid function definition first. You can't sequence what you don't understand. When project teams see these connections clearly, scheduling becomes collaborative instead of imposed. If these three levels aren't aligned, you're building schedules on quicksand. Resources, the people, tools, and assets that make it real. Resources in Project Cortex means understanding not just what you need, but how those resources connect to create capability. Most project managers think about resources like ingredients in a recipe, but it's really about building a temporary organization that can execute your function effectively. When resource planning works, you get that confidence of knowing you have the right people with the right tools at the right time. Resources planning builds directly on your timeline foundation. You can't staff what you haven't scheduled. Project teams that understand this connection can adapt when priorities change, instead of just complaining about inadequate resources. When it fails, you're stuck with that sinking feeling of being under-equipped for what you're trying to accomplish. Resources connect your budget envelope above with your actual costs below, and if these levels don't align, you'll either overspend or under-deliver. To operations level, the execution reality. Task, the actual work that gets done every day. Task is where Project Cortex meets the daily grind, but with much more clarity than traditional approaches. Instead of just managing a to-do list, you understand how each task connects to the function above and the strategic scope at the top. This transforms daily work from getting things done to making progress towards something that matters. Tasks flow naturally from resource assignments and functional requirements. When project teams see these connections, individual contributors become partners in problem solving rather than just order takers. When task execution aligns with the bigger picture, work feels meaningful and productive. When tasks become disconnected from function and strategy, you get that awful feeling of being busy but not effective. The systematic connection between task, function, and scope is what separates Project Cortex from regular project management. Every daily activity has a clear line of sight to strategic value. Duration, how long things actually take, not how long you hope. Duration is where most project schedules crash into reality, but Project Cortex helps you see it coming. Duration isn't just about estimating, it's about understanding the real capacity and flow of work through your system. Traditional project management often treats duration like a negotiation, but Project Cortex shows you it's actually a measurement of how your system works. When you understand duration systematically, you can plan realistically and communicate honestly about what's possible. When duration estimates are disconnected from reality, you get the constant stress of missed deadlines and broken promises. Duration connects your timeline coordination above with your actual daily capacity. Duration estimation improves dramatically when your team understands how tasks connect to functions and resources. Experienced project managers know that realistic duration comes from systematic understanding, not wishful thinking. If these aren't aligned, your beautiful schedules become fantasy documents. Cost, what you're actually spending, not what you budgeted. Cost is where financial reality meets operational execution, and Project Cortex helps you see both clearly. This isn't about accounting. It's about understanding the real resource consumption patterns in your project system. When cost tracking connects properly to your resource planning above and your budget envelope at the top, spending becomes predictable and controllable. You get that satisfying feeling of financial discipline and accurate forecasting. When costs become disconnected from the systematic framework, you get the panic of budget overruns and the frustration of trying to cut expenses without understanding their impact. Cost is the final reality check that tells you whether your entire Project Cortex system is working or just looks good on paper. Cost tracking only makes sense when it connects back through duration, tasks, resources, and all the way up to budget. Project teams that understand these connections can suggest cost optimizations instead of just reporting overruns. Conclusion: most project failures don't happen because people aren't working hard enough or because the technology isn't ready. They happen because different people are operating at different levels without realizing it. The executive thinks about strategic scope while the developer focuses on daily tasks, and nobody connects the dots systematically. Project Cortex solves this by giving everyone the same architectural view. When you can see all 9 windows of the Project Cortex clearly, from strategic scope down to operational costs, project success becomes much more predictable. You stop fighting fires and start preventing them. You stop having meetings where people talk past each other and start having conversations where everyone sees the same structure. This is how project leadership actually develops, not from managing people, but from helping your entire team see the systematic connections that make projects work. Competent project managers understand these connections. Great ones help others see them too. This framework works whether you're a seasoned project manager or someone who just got handed a project and told to make it work. The difference between project success and failure often comes down to one thing: understanding the architecture before you start building. Project Cortex gives you that understanding, systematically and completely. Everything else is just execution.